guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So glad you guys are here watching today. Got a great Bible lesson for you today. But before we get into our Bible lesson, we're going to play some songs for you guys. Most of these are Bible verses, and we want to encourage you guys to do the motions with these songs, again, to help you memorize these Bible scriptures. I'll see you guys right after.
First Peter 3:18. First Peter 3:18.
For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God.
First Peter 3:18.
For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God.
You know he died for you. You know he died for me. He died and then rose up
For all eternity,
Now let's go tell the world. Let's light it up. They're waiting. Just say it's not too late.
your Savior's come to bring salvation.
They need to feel God's love coming from you and me. This isn't hard to do.
Your friends will wait and see.
We don't deserve this love because we all have sinned. That's why he shed his blood so all of us can live.
For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God.
First Peter 3:18. Hebrews 12:1.
Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders, and the sin that so easily entangles, and the sin that so easily entangles. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders, and the sin that so easily entangles, and the sin that so easily entangles. Run with perseverance, the race marked out for us. Let us run with perseverance, the race marked out for us. Let us run with perseverance, the race marked out for us. Let us run with perseverance, the race marked out for us. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders, and the sin that so easily entangles, and the sin that so easily entangles.
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed those songs. If you look at my first picture, it says, "Don't be ashamed to be a Christian." Don't be afraid to tell people that you love Jesus. Always stand up for what is true and for what is right. Our Bible lesson today is found in Luke chapter 22. And I want to encourage you guys, even this week, to open up your Bibles and read the whole chapter in Luke chapter 22 so that you can be more familiar with what we're learning about today. I want to give you the background before we go into our lesson. Peter is a disciple or a believer, a follower of Jesus. He's walked with Jesus for a long, long time. Jesus is about to get arrested. He's about to go on trial, and he's about to be crucified. But something happened to Peter, and I want you guys to see this. Jesus comes up to Peter and he says, Peter, I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you will not lose your faith. Don't be ashamed of being called a Christian or standing up for what is right or even for loving Jesus. And then Peter says this to him. He says, Lord, I am ready to go to prison for you. I am even willing to die with you. So those are some strong words from Peter. He was committed to following Jesus and standing up for him no matter what. But look what Jesus says in verse 34. He said, Peter, before the rooster crows tonight, you will say that you don't know me. You will say this 3 times. In one day, Jesus predicted that Peter would deny him 3 different times in the same day. Let's look at our next slide. Verse 54 says, they arrested Jesus and they took Jesus away and they brought him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed them, but he did not go near Jesus. The soldiers started a fire in the middle of the courtyard and they all sat together. Peter sat with the soldiers. A servant girl saw Peter sitting there near the fire. She looked closely at Peter's face and then she said, this man was with Jesus. But Peter says, no, this is not true. She said, girl, I don't know who he is. He denied him. Peter would go on to deny Jesus 2 more times for a total of 3 times, just what Jesus said would happen. How can he do this? How can he be so ashamed to know Jesus during this time? You know, there are many reasons we believe that he was ashamed, and probably for a fear of being hurt or even being arrested himself. But what I like is the response of Peter when he heard the rooster crow. He remembered what Jesus said to him, that he would deny him. Well, look what happened to Peter in our next slide. It says, then Peter went outside and he cried with much pain in his heart. You know what that shows us, guys? It shows us that Peter, he made a mistake. In his heart, he truly, truly loved Jesus. And when he did something that was against him, especially denying that he even knew his friend, it hurt him very bad. Can you imagine? He fell to his knees, and the Bible says that he was crying and weeping. That's a true sign of somebody who is sorry, a true sign of someone who is repentant. And guys, you know what? Maybe sometime in our life we will actually deny Jesus and maybe even be ashamed sometimes. I don't know. But I want to encourage you guys not to ever be ashamed of Jesus, not to ever be ashamed to say that you are a Christian, that you are a believer. Part of standing up for that is to speak the truth in love. Talk about Jesus everywhere you go. Look at our Bible verse. Our Bible verse is found in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12. And this was written by Paul. If you guys heard last week's lesson, we learned about Paul, how he felt alone because many people who were called Christians and were his close friends actually left him and deserted him. And he was writing this letter to Timothy. Paul was a great example of a man who was never ashamed to be associated with Jesus. He writes, he says, but I am not ashamed. Why? For I know whom I have believed. Let that be a verse, guys. Let that be your verse for this week. Remember, stand up for Jesus. Trust in Jesus. Be bold for Jesus. Speak up for Jesus. And do not be ashamed. Miss Kristen's coming up, and she's going to share a great story with you guys, and I hope this will encourage you. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.
Hey guys, good morning. I have got a life story for you today. So let's get started right away. Today, we're going to be learning about some horses. Now, this is Henry and Harry, and these horses were just out minding their business, chomping on their grass, having a great old time, when all of a sudden they heard some noises, and they got a little bit concerned. So they started to look around, and they realized that they were in trouble, so they began to run. Now, Henry and Harry had their friend Sean with them too, and he told them, "Run fast, guys." So as they began to run away, it was too late. All of a sudden, they felt these ropes wrapped around their neck, and they were captured, and they didn't know what was going on. They were a little bit confused. So let's see what happens. Well, once they got the rope around them and they got put into the trailer to be taken back, they got to a place. And it was actually not a bad place. It was a pretty safe place. And when they got in there, they were looking around and they saw on the wall all of these pictures of other horses with all of these medals and all of these things giving them rewards. You see, they were at a place that was training up horses to be rescue horses. So they weren't so afraid. But then a guy came in as well, and he started talking to them. And he told them, "We're going to train you guys to be rescue horses. I think you guys will be amazing. And when you're all done, you get the choice. You can choose to be branded as a rescue horse or not." The guy was very calming, and he wasn't frightening like they thought he might be. So they thought about it for a while, and they thought, this might not be too bad. So let's see what happens. Well, the next day they were out and they were doing training and they were talking and they thought, wow, we've got food, we've got shelter, that nice man that takes care of us, they keep us clean, they're training us to be really strong. This may not be a bad thing at all. You see, Henry and Harry had been tricked. They thought the place they were going was going to be dangerous and bad, but they came to realize the truth, that it was not. It was actually a great place to be. So they continued their training, they did obstacle courses, and it was not that easy, but they felt good and proud that they accomplished it. So let's see what happens. Well, they had completed all of their training. They were ready to be branded as rescue horses. So the nice gentleman came up to them and said, "Are you guys ready? Are you sure you want to be a rescue horse?" And Harry was first. He said, "Yes, I am ready." So they put the brand on him as a rescue horse. It was a little painful, but at the end, he was so proud to be wearing it. Then next went Henry. Henry did the same thing without hesitation, and they became rescue horses. Let's see what happens. Well, they were wandering about the property. Now they were branded rescue horses, and they were at the edge of the fence when they heard some noise. And they looked over, and it was their old friend Sean. Now when they saw Sean, they were nervous because Sean had told them, "Don't ever get branded. Don't ever become whatever they want you to be. Stay true, escape at all costs." But they knew now that wasn't the truth. So they saw their friend, and they went over and started talking to them. And because they were a little embarrassed, they said, "Hey, yeah, we're so glad you're here. We were just getting ready to escape. We've been looking for a way out." You see, they were ashamed that they had become rescue horses. Sean told them, "Okay, let's go. I'll help you." And boys and girls, you know what? As a Christian, once we find out the great truth about God, we find out that all the things that people say that may not be true about it, and we become Christians, we should never be ashamed of being a Christian. We should never be embarrassed that we serve the most awesome God in the whole entire universe. And this is what was happening with Henry and Harry. They had become these amazing rescue horses, but now they were ashamed because their friend made them feel bad. So let's see what happens. Well, they decided to escape. You see, they made a bad choice. They went with the peer pressure of their friend, and they jumped the fence, and off they went. And they were back in no time with a bunch of their friends. Now, they hid their brand because they were very embarrassed at what they did. So one day they were outside, and they were hanging out with all the other horses, and they heard a noise. And so Harry looked up, and he said, "Hey, guys, do you hear that?" And they all looked around and said, well, we hear a little something. But Harry knew that there was something wrong, that somebody was in trouble. And he began to talk to the other horses. And let's see what happens. He saw his old friend that was with him, Henry, and he said, Henry, come on, do you hear that? Somebody is in trouble. Somebody is screaming. Somebody is calling for help. And Henry surprised him. He said, oh, well, not my problem anymore. And all the other horses started to laugh and not care and just ignore the screams. Well, Harry just couldn't do that. Harry couldn't believe that Henry was doing that. He couldn't believe the other horses. They just had no concern for what they were hearing. And he realized at that moment that he was going to stand up and do what was right, no matter what. So he showed them all his brand proudly. He said, I'm a rescue horse, and I have to go. I can't stand by while somebody is in trouble. The other horses were shocked and amazed, and Henry tried to hide his and say, well, I never meant to do that. You see, he was still embarrassed and he was still ashamed, but Harry was not. And boys and girls, you know what? There comes a time in everybody's life that we have to stand proud and tall and proud that we serve God and not embarrassed at all. And that might mean sometimes going against your friends. Maybe they don't want to serve God. Maybe even people in your family that you love so much, they don't want to serve God. But we have to make a choice, boys and girls. We have to decide to choose to serve God. Now, Henry, he made the choice to do what was right that day. So let's see what happens. Well, Henry took off running as fast as he could, and there he saw it. There was a lady screaming at the edge of the cliff, and at first he thought she was in trouble. But then he saw where her eyes were going, and it was down off the edge of the cliff. And he could see that the lady's daughter had fallen off the cliff and was in big trouble. He thought, oh no, and he raced as fast as he thought he could go. He went faster and faster to get there to help rescue this little girl. And let's see what happens. He ran as fast as he could, and he got there. And at the edge of the cliff, there was a tiny space where he could safely get down. And he got down, and he picked up this little girl, and he put her on his back. And he ran faster than he ever thought he could run to get this little girl to the hospital. He knew that he had to save her. He knew that he was her only chance to get to the hospital. And off he went, quick and fast, to get her there. And let's see what happens. Well, the next day, Harry was all over the newspaper. There was a picture of him with a headline that said he saved this little girl, and that if he hadn't made it when he did, she wouldn't have made it. It would have been too late. Harry was so proud of the choice he made. He knew it was worth it. He knew he was created to be a rescue horse, and he knew that he needed to do his job to help to save people. And boys and girls, you know what? As a Christian, we have to do our job. We have to serve God and tell others about Jesus. We have to be bold and strong and not ashamed like Henry was, but we have to be more like Harry and know and do what is right. Well, boys and girls, I hope that you learned from this story today. I hope I encouraged you to not be ashamed, to serve God with everything that you are and love Him, because He will never leave you and He will never forsake you. He loves you so much, and He has created you to be a Christian for this purpose. We love you guys so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.